Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the church building. I know it's been a while. I apologize. Please forgive me. But we're going to be diving right back into Genesis chapters 38 through 40. And, as always, like a lot of people, I could come up with 1,000 reasons why I shouldn't be reading today. But, again, it is my goal to read through the entire Bible, cover to cover. It is a life goal. I don't want to be on my deathbed and say, I never read the Bible, So no matter what your religious persuasion is, I think we can agree that the Bible is one of the most important books on the planet. It certainly has affected a lot of people. So I think it's worthwhile to at least read it, see what it says. Now, like I forewarned last time, these next few chapters get kind of adult. It's adult subject matter. So hide the kids. Kids, sorry, it's Bible time, but you need to scoot off to bed. Mommy and Daddy need to read something a little bit more grown up. So hide the kids. You have been warned. So let's dive right into chapter 38 of Genesis, dealing with Judah and Tamar. And, there's no way around this. You just got to dive right in sometimes, If you want to learn to swim, you got to jump in the water. Chapter 38, it happened at that time that Judah went down from his brother and settled near a certain Adullamite whose name was Hira. There Judah saw the daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shua. He married her and went into her. She conceived and bore a son, and he named him Again, she conceived and bore a son, whom she named Onan. Onan. Yet again, she bore a son, and she named him Shelah. She was in Shezib when she bore him. Judah took a wife for his firstborn. Her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord put him to death. I wonder if we'll find out more about that. I don't know. Then Judah said to Onan, "Go into your brother's wife and perform the duty of a brother-in-law to her, raising up offspring for your brother." And I can't recall if this is a cultural duty or a biblical duty, but anyway, you had to continue your lineage if your brother died and so forth. You can study that for yourself. But since Onan knew that the offspring would not be his, he spilled his semen. Spilled his semen on the ground whenever he went into his brother's wife, so that he would not give offspring to his brother. Onan, you sneaky guy. What he did was displeasing in the sight of the Lord, and he put him to death also. Wow. Then Judah said to his daughter-in-law, Tamar, "Remain a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah grows up." For he feared that he too would die like his brothers. So Tamar went to live in her father's house. Verse 12. In course of time, the wife of Judah, Shua's daughter, died. When Judah's time of mourning was over, he went up to Timnah to his sheep shearers, he and his friend Hira the Adullamite. When Tamar was told, "Your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep," she put off her widow's garments, put on a veil, wrapped herself up, and sat down at the entrance of Enaim, which is on the road to Timnah. She saw that Shelah was grown up, yet she had not been given to him in marriage. When Judah saw her, he thought her to be a prostitute, for she had covered her face. He went over to her at the roadside and said, "Come, let me come in to you," for he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. She said, "What will you give me that you may come in to me?" He answered, "I will send you a kid from the flock." And she said, "Only if you give me a pledge until you send it." He said, "What pledge shall I give you?" She replied, "Your signet and your cord and the staff that is in your hand." So he gave them to her and went in to her, and she conceived by him. Then she got up and went away, and taking off her veil, she put on the garments of her widowhood. When Judah sent the kid by his friend the Adullamite to recover the pledge from the woman, he could not find her. He asked the townspeople, "Where is the temple prostitute who was at Inium by the wayside?" But they said, "No prostitute has been here." So he returned to Judah and said, "I have not found her." Moreover, the townspeople said, "No prostitute has been here." Judah replied, "Let her keep the things as her own, otherwise we will be laughed at. You see, I sent this kid, and you could not find her." About 3 months later, Judah was told, "Your daughter-in-law Tamar has played the whore. Moreover, she is pregnant as a result of her whoredom." Sorry, it's not a laughing matter, just the phrasing. And Judah said, "Bring her out and let her be burned." My goodness. And she was being brought out. She sent word to her father-in-law, "It was the owner of these who made me pregnant." And she said, "Take note, please, whose these are, the signet and the cord and the staff." When Judah acknowledged them and said, "She is more in the right than I, since I did not give her to my son Shelah." And he did not lie with her again. When the time of her delivery came, there were twins in her womb. While she was in labor, one put out a hand, and the midwife took and bound on the hand a crimson thread, saying, "This one came out first." But just then he drew back his hand. These are some sneaky people. And out came his brother, and she said, "What a breach you have made for yourself." Therefore he was named Perez. Afterwards his brother came out with a crimson thread on his hand, and he was named Zerah. Ooh boy. So that covers chapter 38. I'm going to sip on my chocolate milk, and then we're going to continue. All right. Chapter 39. Now Joseph was taken down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard, an Egyptian, brought him from the Ishmaelites who had brought him down there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he became a successful man. He was in the house of his Egyptian master. His master saw that the Lord was with him, and the Lord caused all that he did to prosper. So Joseph found favor in his sight and attended him. He made him overseer of the house and put him in charge of all that he had. From the time that he made him overseer in the house and all that he had, the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. The blessing of the Lord was on all that he had in house and field. So he left all that he had in Joseph's charge, and with him there he had no concern for anything but the food that he ate. Now Joseph was handsome and good-looking, and after a time his master's wife cast her eyes on Joseph and said, "Lie with me." Just gets right to the point. He refused and said to his master's wife, "Look, with me here, my master has no concern about anything in the house, and he has put everything that he has in my hand. He is not greater in this house than I am, nor has he kept back anything from me except yourself, because you are his wife. How then could I do this great wickedness and sin against God?" And although she spoke to Joseph day after day, he would not consent to lie beside her or to be with her. One day, however, when he went into the house to do his work, and while no one else was in the house, she caught hold of his garment, saying, "Lie with me." But he left his garment in her hand and fled and ran outside. When she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and had fled outside, she called out to the members of her household and said to them, "See, my husband has brought among us a Hebrew to insult us. He came to me to lie with me, and I cried out with a loud voice. And when he heard me raise my voice and cry out, he left his garment beside me and fled outside. Then she kept his garment by her until his master came home." Oh boy. And she told him the same story, saying, "The Hebrew servant whom you have brought among us came into me to insult me. But as soon as I raised my voice and cried out, he left his garment beside me and fled outside." When his master heard these words that his wife spoke to him, saying, "This is the way your servant treated me," he became enraged. And Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. He remained there in prison, but the Lord was with Joseph and showed him steadfast love. He gave him favor in the sight of the chief jailer. The chief jailer committed to Joseph's care all the prisoners who was in the prison. And whatever was done there, he was the one who did it. The chief jailer paid no heed to anything that was in Joseph's care, because the Lord was with him. And whatever he did, the Lord made it prosper. Interesting personality traits from Joseph. Is he just a really trustworthy guy, or did God kind of finagle things for him? I'm not sure. Either way, Joseph was in charge of a lot of responsibilities, for sure. A little chocolate milk before we dive into chapter 39. Now Joseph was taken down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard, an Egyptian, brought him from the Ishmaelites who had brought him there. Wait. I'm sorry. We just read chapter 39. I'm sorry. Sorry, Joseph. Sometime after this, chapter 40, the cupbearer of the king of Egypt and his baker offended their lord, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh was angry with his two officers, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and he put them in custody in the house of the captain of the guard, in the prison where Joseph was confined. The captain of the guard charged Joseph with them. So Joseph is overseeing these two dudes. And he waited on them, and they continued for some time in custody. One night they both dreamed, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were confined in prison. Each his own dream, and his dream with his own meaning. When Joseph came to them in the morning, he saw that they were troubled. So he asked Pharaoh's officers who were with him in the custody in his master's house, "Why are your faces downcast today?" They said to him, "We have had dreams, and there's no one to interpret them." And Joseph said to them, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Please tell them to me." So the chief cupbearer told his dream to Joseph and said, "In my dream there was a vine before me, and on the vine were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, its blossoms came out, and the clusters ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup and placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand." Then Joseph said to him, "This is its interpretation. The 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your office." Sounds like good news. "And you shall place Pharaoh's cup in his hand. Place his cup in his hand, just as you used to do when you were his cupbearer. But remember me when it is well with you. Please do me the kindness to make mention of me to Pharaoh, and so get me out of this place. For in fact, I was stolen out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also I have done nothing that they should have put me into the dungeon." When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was favorable, he said to Joseph, "I have also had a dream. There were 3 cake baskets on my head, and in the uppermost basket were all sorts of baked food for Pharaoh. But the birds were eating it out of the basket on my head." And Joseph answered, "This is its interpretation. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head from you. Lift up your head from you and hang you on a pole, and the birds will eat the flesh from you." Wow, thanks, Joseph. I wasn't expecting that. On the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, he made a feast for all his servants and lifted up the head of the chief cupbearer, as Joseph predicted, I guess, and the head of the chief baker among his servants. He restored the chief cupbearer to his cupbearing, and he placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand, but the chief baker he hanged, just as Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet the chief cupbearer did not remember Joseph, but forgot him. What do you know? Forgot Joseph after all that. I guess when things are going well as a cupbearer, you kind of forget your old homies back in jail. I don't know. Well, thanks for watching today. I know this is some grown-up material. I didn't write it. Don't blame me. Don't boycott the Bible, please, yet. Please stick with me. We've got a long way to go, cover to cover. Next time, we're going to jump into chapter 41 and beyond. But again, thanks for joining me. Best of luck in your Bible reading. See you next time.